Hey guys, I'm Carr. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the right hand technique for a Celtic jig. Basically it's a lot more involved, there's a lot more to it, and it can be kind of frustrating. So hopefully this video will help you get on your way. Alright, so before we get to talking about our right hand technique, let's take a moment and talk a little bit about the theory behind the Celtic jigs. So a Celtic jig is basically going to be separated into measures of 6/8, meaning that you have 6 beats in every measure, and you're going to be counting the eighth notes in those measures. So the life of a jig really comes from where you're placing your accents. In a jig, your accents are placed on beats 1, 3, 4, and 6. If you have a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, write down 6 lines to represent your beats. I would do that twice because we're going to talk about 2 different picking patterns, so you can actually write the directions of your pick over each one. So circle beats 1, circle beat 3 and 4, and then circle beat 6. Now, to know which picking pattern you want to use, that's really going to come down to who you are as a player and understanding the song that you're playing. So typically most players will accent the downbeat more than they will the upbeat. So if that's the case, you want to make sure that your downstrokes are over beats 1, 3, 4, and 6. So your picking pattern would actually be down, up, down, down, up, down. Down, up, down, down, up, down. And that will actually kind of still fall into a pattern, but there's a little bit more involvement in that, and it can be kind of confusing. Now, the other very common picking pattern is down, down, up, down, down, up. And this kind of, I think, comes about, and I think it's really appropriate if you start to accent when your picking direction changes as opposed to when you're going down. So being more involved and having kind of more going on, some people will actually accent more when their picking changes, and it's just because they're fighting, the inertia of your hands. So with that, your pick, the pick change, or the picking change actually falls onto every accent. So that's down, down, up, down, down, up. Now, I don't necessarily feel that one's better than the other, and I actually would use both depending on the song that I'm playing. Some songs seem to lend themselves more to one pattern or the other, and I think it's important to keep in mind that these tunes weren't necessarily written for the mandolin. They were written on the fiddle or written on the tin whistle. So we have to be a little bit more creative when we're trying to put them onto our instrument. And we have to be a little flexible. So you'll even find that sometimes I'll use both. For example, the tune that I played for the intro, Banish Misfortune, that has 3 different parts, and I found that some parts will lend themselves to one picking style more than others will. Even down to some measures might lend themselves. But you have to be really, really careful about changing your picking pattern to make sure it's not a very obvious change. It still has to feel very natural. Now the last thing that I would really say about your right hand technique is to make sure that whatever your left hand fingering is, that it's lending itself to your pattern. So for example, there's a section in the A part of Banish Misfortune that took me a little bit to figure out how I wanted to finger, because it's not very natural, and your first inclination on it wouldn't necessarily work. So if you're going to, for example, use that open A, you would have to go down, down, up, down, down, up, down. Now that all works, but what follows that doesn't. So down, 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 up, down, down, up, down, and then you're supposed to go back to your D string and play a down, and back to your A string and play an up. and it's very hard to get that fluid and comfortable in time. So instead I kept the A on the D string, and that actually lends me to my last point. If you're going to be working up the neck or changing strings, you want to try to get that movement on a downstroke. It has more force and it'll kind of mask the fact that you're moving around. So you notice here, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. So I've moved positions, but I've done that on a downstroke. And for the most part, I've actually kept every string change. When I go move down to the next string, I've kept most of those on a downstroke. The only difference is when I play that open E, that is actually an upstroke. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully it answered any of the questions you might have been having concerning about playing Celtic jigs. If you liked the video, please subscribe. I'll be putting up a ton more mandolin and guitar lesson videos and even some banjo ones. If there's anything that you'd like me to cover, go ahead and leave that in the comments and I'll see what I can do to help you out. If you're really interested in playing this style of music or playing Celtic music, I would actually recommend getting a tenor banjo. It's tuned the same way as a mandolin, just an octave down, and what you'll actually find is that it's a lot louder. So if you're in a session or ceilidh, what ends up happening is the mandolin tends to get kind of drowned out because it's a little too quiet, whereas the tenor banjo typically won't have that problem.